All right, everybody, let's get started. I'm so excited. My name is Caitlin McGrayus. I am a doula. I'm a mother of three, of VBAC 2 times, which we'll talk about. And I'm the founder of Be Her Village. Be Her Village is helping parents find and fund their support teams so that they can have all of the care that they deserve as they are taking care of their babies. Today, we are talking about how to get your VBAC, 3 basic steps to getting the birth that you want. I'm going to talk fast because I always have a lot to say, especially when we talk about VBAC. And so if you have any questions, just feel free to throw them in the chat. I will try to get through them. We also have some awesome offers at the end of this session because I literally couldn't fit it into a half hour. So I just spent 4 hours writing a book about VBAC. So let's get into it. A little bit about me and my background and why I am here with any qualifications at all to talk about VBAC. My story is that I was a special ed teacher in New York City, and I thought, cool, let me have a baby. I'm in love. I'm married. Let's do this thing, And I was in my 20s. I felt a little invincible. Somehow in my late 30s, not feeling as invincible. I thought I could do anything. I thought I was powerful. I thought, I watched The Business of Being Born. No big deal. That won't be me. I can tell people no, and they'll listen. And then I was sort of just almost immediately stripped of my power and of my voice while I went through my birth. And I ended up with a planned out-of-hospital birth turning into an emergency C-section that I always say is sort of traumatic, but I always qualify it with it was traumatic, but it was standard American care. It was induction, epidural, C-section, wham bam, thank you ma'am. It was classic American maternal health care. And it's part of what spurred me into birth work, spurred me into doula work, spurred me into trying to get the message out to parents, but especially VBAC parents or people who are curious about VBAC, that there are ways to get it. And it's not how any doctor or person in the medical system is going to tell you. Which is why I'm doing it, because we need the information and we have to empower ourselves. And I have to tell you, just on a personal note, VBAC moms are my favorite. They are my favorite because we have lost the it's my first time having a baby, everything's going to be great kind of a glow. And it's listen, we've been through this before and it didn't go how we wanted it to go. And now we're here to make sure it's a little bit different. And if you're watching this, I'm guessing that that's part of why you're here. So let's get into it. There's 3 major things. And listen, in 30 minutes time, we're not going to get through, you're not going to get a full education on how to get a VBAC, but I'm going to set you off on thinking about the right things. Because sometimes we start looking for a VBAC and thinking I don't even know what I don't know, right? Is it safe? Is it something I should go for? How do I do it? What do I need? And I'm going to just give you a framework for understanding that. So we're going to talk about the absolute first and foremost thing that should be on your mind, which is getting a VBAC supportive doctor or midwife, the most important part of your VBAC. And we'll talk more about that. Number 2, we're going to talk about learning to advocate for yourself. Every single person should learn how to advocate for themselves in the medical system. For many of us, our pregnancies are the first and hopefully only time that we're engaging with the medical system. And it's a time that we're really vulnerable. And it's just wildly important to learn how to advocate for yourself during your birth, for any birth, but VBAC especially. And last but not least, we need to make a plan for laboring at home. Laboring at home is a part of any VBAC. It should be a part. It should be a part of the plan. And there's specific tools that you need. You need to sort of get into a good mindset about that and set yourself up for success there. So let's dive in. VBAC supportive providers. A lot of people, when they're going for their VBAC, think, I need a doula. How do I hire a doula? Doulas are thousands of dollars. How do I do this? I need a doula. Let me go interview 7 doulas. And we spend a lot of time focusing on the support team. And listen, I had a doula for my VBAC. I am a doula, love doulas, built a platform to help people get doulas as baby registry gifts. I am the first person to be shouting about how great doulas are. And I will level with you. you can have the best doula in the world, and it will not counteract a non-VBAC supportive provider. You have to find a VBAC supportive provider. Provider meaning doctor or midwife, medical person who you are going to hire for your care to support you through your journey. It is the single most important decision, and it is where your energy should go when you're thinking about a VBAC. And here's the thing, this is important whether you are like, I am getting my VBAC, no matter what happens, like totally dead set on it, or if you're like, I kind of might want to VBAC, but I'm a little nervous and I'm just curious and I don't really know. I'm actually totally fine with a repeat C-section too, or maybe just trying a little bit. Like wherever you are on that spectrum, you need a VBAC supportive doctor or midwife. And here's why. If you go to a non-supportive VBAC, a provider, a doctor or midwife who does not support VBAC, then they are going to tell you that you are not a candidate for VBAC. And boom, that's the end of it. End of discussion. They don't do VBAC, so therefore they do not see you as a VBAC supportive VBAC candidate, and that is the end of the VBAC discussion. So for someone who's dead set on VBAC, obviously that's a non-starter, but for someone who's even just curious about VBAC, you're not going to get the options laid out. You're not going to get an honest answer about what you need for your VBAC. You're not going to get the choices that are available to you. So if you are even curious, you want somebody to say, hey, here are the options, right? Like you can have a repeat C-section. We can do that. Or we could do a VBAC. And here's what that would look like. You also want to go to somebody who has a track record of being VBAC supportive and is clearly somebody who does VBAC, because then you can get an honest answer about whether your particular history and your health history and your presentation to them in office is ideal for VBAC. So I'll just give you a little anecdote about mine. I went to like the #1 VBAC supportive OBGYN in my area. She's known far and wide for OBGYN. I wasn't in the midwife framework mindset yet, but she is an Orthodox Jewish woman who serves Orthodox Jewish women. And Orthodox Jewish women have a lot of babies, typically, generally, they have a lot of babies. And so if they have a cesarean and then they have to have repeat cesareans and they have 8 children, it becomes, you can imagine how the risk profile goes up with each one. So with her, she specialized in VBAC so that her Orthodox patients could have a chance at having continued vaginal births. And when I went into her, I wasn't like, I want a VBAC or bust. I said, hey, I'm really curious about VBAC. I haven't made my decision yet, but you do this all the time. Am I a good candidate? And she was able to tell me, I do this all the time. Let me look at your chart. Tell me some things about your past birth. Yes, you're a great candidate. If you go to a doctor that does not do VBAC, they're all going to tell you that you don't have an option. Getting a VBAC supportive provider is tricky. It's tricky. I literally just finished off like this whole workbook on how to identify a VBAC supportive provider. And you want an evidence-based provider. That is the most important thing. And what does that mean? Evidence-based means science-based. It means that the doctors are up to date on studies. The doctors know what the best and most safe practices are for mothers and babies to have wonderful outcomes in birth and in VBAC. And when you have a VBAC supportive doctor, most of what you're scanning or screening them for is finding out if they practice evidence-based care, finding out if they are supportive of, intermittent monitoring, of letting you, that's a whole other story, but of supporting you being pregnant past your due date, supporting you moving around during labor, laboring at home, having a doula, and really like supportive of the practices that lead to vaginal birth generally. Because the practices that lead to vaginal birth generally, believe it or not, also lead to VBAC. And the best thing we can do when we're pursuing our VBAC is really find somebody not just that's supporting VBAC, but that supports vaginal birth. Because the things that lead to vaginal birth are the exact same things that lead to VBAC, because a VBAC is just a vaginal birth. It becomes this like big, scary thing that people sort of don't want to touch and want nothing to do with, but like it's just a vaginal birth. At the end of the day, it's just a vaginal birth, and you have to find somebody that supports that. So I highly recommend interviewing several different doctors or several different midwives, starting with, if you're pregnant right now, the one that you are with now. Asking them the questions about what it looks like at the end of pregnancy, asking them the questions about if they'll induce, if they'll make you schedule a C-section, if they'll make you get an epidural, if they'll let you move around in labor, if they support a doula. These are all the things that you want to know. You want to know about how many VBACs they've supported in the past. You need to do the work digging in to get insight into whether this is part of their standard clinical practice. And bonus, if this midwife or doctor that you're interviewing can give you stats, if they can say, hey, we had this many attempted VBACs, this many successful VBACs, and this many repeat C-sections, these are the things that you want to ask them for. And if they have those stats, there's a good chance that they're actually VBAC supportive. So definitely take the time to interview your doctor. And let me just say this as one final thing, because I'm watching the time tick by. If you are listening to me and you think, well, I go into my office visits and it's just really fast, and I get in this gown, and the nurse comes in, and then the doctor comes in for like 2 seconds, listens to the baby, touches my belly, although some of them don't even do that. And it all just feels really fast. And I don't feel like I have the knowledge or the power, or I don't want to like upset anybody by asking questions. That's your first red flag. If your doctor or midwife is not creating a space for you to get your questions asked, and is not creating time and appointments for education, for conversation about what the future holds in terms of your pregnancy, in terms of testing, sonograms, in terms of what labor is going to look like, if they're not creating space for that, it's a red flag. If you feel meek and powerless and small in your appointments, that's a red flag. So go ask the questions. And if nothing else, if you're like highly suspicious that your doctor or midwife is exactly the right person, I would say, great, go ask them the questions and then book an appointment with somebody else and get a flavor for the non-VBAC supportive. But do your due diligence in making this choice. Okay, moving along, because now we're almost done. Okay, learning how to advocate for yourself. I could teach a 17-hour course on this and just scratch the surface. So this is just the very beginning. Creating a functional birth plan. How do we do that? What does a birth plan mean? Listen, a birth plan is not a piece of paper that you make with your partner or with your doula and then put in a cute little birth bag and then bring out once you get to the hospital. A birth plan is a list of questions you bring to every single prenatal appointment. A birth plan for me was a note on my iPhone, my notes that were just questions I would think of like while I was driving. I have a lot of things come into my brain while I'm driving, but it was this messy, not pretty thing. It's not something you download, they have all these images. It's not like that. It is really this functional thing that you should be talking about and co-creating with your doula, with your partner, and with your doctor or midwife. Your birth plan should be your desires and research put on a piece of paper and then brought up in discussion so that the plan comes together with the support of everybody on your team. That's what advocacy is. Advocacy is doing the research for yourself, asking lots of questions, and using your voice to get buy-in and get, support from everybody around you. People think advocacy is fighting. People think advocacy is like kicking doctors out and yelling at nurses. That is not. If you're doing that at your birth, things have gone horribly wrong. Because During your pregnancy, you have this beautiful opportunity to interview, you know, your team, to select the place that you're going to birth, to make a functional birth plan in collaboration with your team members. It should never get to the point where you're feeling like you need to fight during your labor, when we should feel protected and safe and open and vulnerable. So do the work now of finding that voice, of creating this birth plan, communicating it with your partner, and of finding this strength within you to get your needs met. And the thing is, we have to learn it at some point in our lives. Some of us learn it really young, unfortunately, because like trauma usually, but like some of us learn it young. Some of us learn it when we become mothers. Some of us learn it, honestly, I've talked to a few people who learn it through their fertility journeys because they sort of got thrown into that. Some of us learn it through cancer journeys. Some of us learn it through their birth, like on the spot learning, but we're all going to learn how to find our voice, how to advocate for ourselves. And it's never more important than when we are mothers. Because even if we can't advocate for ourselves, even if we can't stand up for ourselves and say, I need my needs met, this is my truth, I'm standing here and I'm steady and rooted, we will always advocate for our children. The mama bear spirit is strong in every single mother. It comes out differently, but it is there. And so learning these tools of advocating for yourself early on is more important than ever. I'm going to just give you these two bottom bullet points here. Reframing directives as questions and asking about the before, the after, before are the two like practical things that I want you to come away with. Number one, reframing directives as questions is what I do as a doula. So when somebody comes in to, let's just say triage, because triage seems to be like our first experience in the hospital, and they say, we're going to place your IV and I need you to lay down on the bed and we're going to monitor the baby for 20 minutes. That's a thing that people are told all the time when they get into the hospital. And while many of us hear that and go, okay, I'm going to get my IV and I'm going to go lay down and get monitored. And I'm doing this because it's everything's to make sure the baby's safe. And this is, I have to follow the rules. What I heard was an opportunity to make a choice. I'd like to place an IV in your arm. Is that okay with you? Wow. That lands differently because now there's an opportunity for me to go, yeah, no, that's fine, and move forward, or to say, why do I need an IV? And to get some answers and to make a choice and to move forward. Getting in the bed to be monitored. Get in the bed and I'll put the monitor on you for 20 minutes is a directive. It is, this is what you will do because I am in charge and you are not. When we reframe it, whether we're doing it in our heads or our partners are whispering in our ears or our doulas are saying it out loud, we are going to say, would you like to get in the bed? Are you ready to be monitored? Would you prefer to be monitored standing next to the bed? These are small things that can literally shift the entire trajectory of your labor, especially for VBAC parents, which so many of us know. You know, everyone's got their own story, but like many of us, it's like when we got into the bed, everything hits the fan, you know, like that's where it derails because then you're like, white knuckling it, you're requesting an epidural, all of your tools that might have been working for you earlier, like upright positioning and movement and, you know, whatever tools you were using to get through your waves before you got into the hospital are then taken from you in that moment. And here's the other thing to know. Even if you're going to agree with every single thing that's offered, meaning like, sure, I can't wait to get in the bed. I'm exhausted. Yes, please monitor the baby. I definitely want to make sure the baby's okay. Please give me the IV. Do all the things. Like, let's say you're going to say yes to every single directive or reframed question. It feels different to be asked. It feels different to consent to something than to have somebody come in as an authority figure and take away your autonomy. And at the end of the day, when this all plays out for your birth, however it's going to play out for you, having this ability to have some semblance of control and consenting makes a huge, huge difference. Ask about the after before is really just, it's very simple and also very powerful. What this means is that you should be asking at any given point, what happens after that happens? So like, let's use the IV, continued example. You're going to put the IV in. Will I get fluids? Like, well, yeah, we're going to give you fluids. Well, I've read that fluids can, pause labor or slow it down. Could we wait on that? These are the conversations before you do anything that you play it out. Cervical exams are a really big part of this. Cervical exams have a way of like being these points of departure in our labor that we can go one way or another. Inductions, all of these conversations, instead of just saying, sure, I'll do that one thing, you want to ask, which path does this put me on? If we decide to induce next week, where do we go from there? If we decide to break my water, what's the next thing that you're going to recommend? When you have the conversations before this thing has happened, your medical providers have a lot more leeway to speak in the hypothetical. Once they're speaking to you after the thing has been done and there's real implications, it's less likely that they can sort of do a thought exercise with you. So I would recommend you asking about the end of pregnancy, about what labor looks like, about all of the decisions you'll make as early as possible, including in your pregnancy and prenatal appointments. Okay, plan for laboring at home. So active labor was changed maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was changed to mean 6 centimeters dilated. 6 centimeters dilated out of 10. So more than halfway through, although quite honestly, I always look at it as the first 5 centimeters is 2/3 of your labor. So more than 2/3 of the way there is when you're supposed to go to the hospital when you're in labor. So unless you're being induced, which is like, again, a whole other conversation about evidence-based care, and if you want your VBAC, you should be avoiding induction at all costs, except that you want a provider that will do it as a last resort. You want to make sure that laboring at home is part of your plan. You want to make sure that you have the support from your partner, from any family members that are living with you, that you have tools set up for yourself, that you have a doula or other person that will help you stay at home, that will help you take advantage of that at-home laboring time so that you don't go to the hospital too early. When you go to the hospital, the timer starts. When you go to the hospital, these interventions begin. And honestly, many people say going to the hospital is the first intervention, right? The bright lights are an intervention. The nurses interrupting you are an intervention. The IV is an intervention. The changing your position is an intervention. All of these things sort of snap us out of our natural hormonal process, with oxytocin bringing us all of these beautiful contractions. At home is where you want to be in early labor, and you have to make a plan for it. So if you haven't made a plan for it, if you're planning on an epidural, even if you're planning on an epidural, plan on an epidural at 6 centimeters, plan on laboring at home, and set yourself up for what that looks like. If that sounds like, whoa, that's not what I was up for, reach out, get a doula, reach out, take a childbirth ed class, prepare yourself for being supported in that laboring time, because the hospital is for the birth if you're planning a hospital birth. Okay, your body, your baby, your birth. That's just a great slide to have, quite honestly, because it really cements the, like, this is your experience, right? Everything else is details. The doctors that you hire, the midwife that you hire, the doula you hire, they work for you. This is your birth. This is your VBAC, and you get to have the say over how it unfolds and how people treat you. And the work of getting your VBAC happens in pregnancy. The work of getting your baby out and getting the labor to unfold the way you want it to happens in pregnancy. There's a reason we're pregnant for 9 months, because it gives us time to do this exploration, to get the education, to have these conversations, to do these interviews, to find supportive care providers, and to ready our minds and our bodies and our family and our support team in order to have the birth that we want. And at the end of the day, everything rests with you. You are the one that's in the driver's seat. All right. So I felt like there's so much information. As you could tell, I probably keep talking about all of this. I want to introduce you guys to some of the offerings that we have. Our advocacy bundle, I'm just really quickly gonna just like unshare my screen, or I don't know how I can do this. Can you guys still see the screen? Can you see it? Okay. I just want to show you, whoops. I'm going to show you our advocacy bundle because it's so awesome. It's literally all of the questions that you need, plus the answers. Oh, I'm not doing a good job with this. And please ignore my crazy desktop because I take a lot of screenshots. Okay, so this is a totally comprehensive bundle that includes everything you need to know to do the 3 things we just talked about: the 10 questions for your provider and the answers that they should have, how to advocate for yourself, and how to labor at home. It's all in there. Sorry, I'm going to just stop so we can look at each other. It's all in there, and it's something that literally every single person who's trying for a VBAC should have. Having a VBAC supportive provider just for those 10 questions alone, honestly, is like, it's worth the price of admission. The other 2 things that we're doing are actually brand new, and it feels really exciting. One is we're offering a chance to get in the room with a VBAC experienced and trained doula for a full hour, so that you can take everything you're learning on the internet, everything you're learning in this class, everything you learn in the bundle, which I felt like as I was writing that bundle, I'm like, oh, there's more to talk about here, but there's only so much you can fit right into one thing. And you can get individualized care from somebody who has done this, from somebody who has supported people through VBAC before, and you can get attention on your specific case. The next thing that we're offering is actually, this is really brand new and I feel excited. I've been doing this informally for a really long time, but now we're creating an offering for it, which is finding you your VBAC supportive doctor, because it can be intimidating and it can be hard to ask those questions and suss out the answers. There's a lot of tricky things where like some doctors will say like, yeah, whatever you want, and it's like, oh, cool, but they don't get specific. And then as you move forward in your pregnancy, things start to unravel. So our team will help you find a VBAC supportive doula, a VBAC supportive doctor, midwife, and we will do the work of connecting you with the team that you need. So if you'd like to be involved in any of that, send us a DM. Everything's included with this video, and thanks for being here.